Colour theory is the hardest part of permanent makeup, and getting it wrong is leading to blue and grey eyebrows that are almost impossible to fix. Understanding the components of what makes great healed brow colours is what makes permanent makeup easy and keeps clients coming back with great healed results time after time. So the healed colour will be affected by the client's skin, the technique and the type of pigment we use. So in this video, I'm going to explain how the technique we choose can massively change the healed colour and what we need to do to get great healed results. The 3 parts of colour theory will be condensed into a guide for you to download below, because I help PMU artists like you level up their skills and businesses with simple explanations. If you want to work with me, there's also a link in the description. Right, let's crack on with colour theory for brow techniques. Whenever we try to predict the healed colour of a client's brows, think of it like a puzzle with 3 pieces: skin, pigment and technique. Each of these 3 pieces will influence the healed colour, so when we put them all together, we can accurately predict the healed results and then know if we need to change anything. So getting a great healed colour comes from balancing the 3 parts. So if techniques tend to give us colour shifts towards cooler results, and a client's skin is going to heal cool, then we may need to rebalance the colour with the pigment puzzle piece. Think of it like a scale. We're always trying to balance so there are no shifts towards cool or warm. So for this part of the healed colour puzzle, we're going to look at the techniques and how they shift the way the colour looks in more detail, so we can balance it out if we need to. So we're going to start by looking at an ombre. An ombre brow is mostly made up of dots if you're using liners or shaders. The needle or groups of needles strikes the skin and implants the pigment. This technique affects the density of the colour because when we leave dots in the skin, we also leave gaps between the dots, and the more gaps, the lighter the saturation of colour. So with an ombre, the technique and needle we use can often affect the value of the colour. This means how light or dark the colour is. If we use liner needles, then the needles are grouped together tightly, and this leaves less space between the needles, resulting in a denser colour of dot or pixel. But because an ombre implanted properly isn't overly traumatic for the skin, the depth of implantation should be good, meaning that the depth won't affect the colour's warmth. The only thing that will affect how the healed results look is the client's skin itself. So when we look at an ombre's effect on the colour, it's a neutral effect. But this isn't the same for all brow techniques though. Microblading is a row of needles that stays in the skin with a long movement. This row of needles creates a thin channel that is filled with pigment, so it has a high saturation of pigment, but in a narrow line that often goes deeper in the skin than a machine needle. The result of this condensed, deeper colour is that microblading strokes can often make the healed results look a little cooler. If these are put into thinner skin, like mature skin, then they are closer to the veins and look even cooler. So is this the same for all hair strokes then? Well, if we implant the hair strokes by machine, then it often depends on the technique that we use to implant them. Machine hair strokes can be implanted with a soft shading stroke, or by leaving the needle in the skin either etching, moving back and forth, or with a single line pulling movement, resulting in either a soft dotted stroke or a single line. And the more we keep the movement to a single line, the more concentrated and potentially cooler the result will be. This difference in intensity is really clear to see though when we mix techniques. So if we decide to microblade hair strokes and then machine shade between them, or to some degree nano hair strokes with line pulling and then shade in between them, then the same pigment can look quite different. When we look at this picture of microbladed hair strokes with machine shading over the top, you can see how the shading not only looks lighter, but a lot warmer than the hair strokes, even though it's the same pigment. This is just down to the gaps in the shading compared to the high concentration of colour in the stroke. But if you get your microblading too deep, this too can have long-term effects on the healed colour. A PMU artist in my local area sadly died, and I got a lot of referral clients wanting me to take them on. But the aged work was so strange. I could tell her work a mile off because all the brows looked purple. Now when I looked closely at them, they were all microblading and shading, but the hair strokes were blurry and blue, and the shading had aged red. They were a blotchy mess showing what the long-term effects of depth and incorrect technique had on colour. The same pigment not only looked different, but it was at complete opposite sides of the colour wheel. This shows how much technique can affect the long-term colour. So what does that mean for choosing a pigment? This is the part of the colour theory puzzle where we decide whether the technique should influence or change the colour and the type of pigment that we choose. So if we're doing an ombre, this technique, especially if we're using a dotted technique like whip shading or pendulum, is neutral and it won't need to be changed. Machine hair strokes will depend on the type of technique you're using. Shaded strokes are neutral, line pulling may look a little cooler, so we may need to warm the pigment slightly by adding a drop of a warmer colour or a modifier. Microblading is a cool technique, so it needs pigments that are more neutral or warmish, and we need to modify more with warmth. The skin is also cool. Now, this only deals with how the technique will shift the look of the colour. These results will be amplified if we add these techniques to cooler skin, or if we use pigments that heal, cool or warm over time. So to understand modification more and whether we need to adjust the colour even more, we need to look at the colour theory of pigments in more detail. And for that, you're going to need this video here.